Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm excited to welcome Stacey Grants to the show. Stacey is a Snapchat editor for 17. She's also the author of the book, Hey Arnold's Guide to Relationships. Welcome, Stacey.
Thanks for having me, Allie. I'm excited to be here.
Very excited to have you on. And so I wanted to learn about your career. So first off, I wanted to know basically your career path and how you got to where you are today at your current position at 17.
Well, I don't know if you can hear my accent, but I'm from Texas. I went to the University of North Texas to study radio, television, film. I graduated in 2014, and didn't want to live in Dallas or Austin, which are the big kind of film areas in Texas, and I loved the city, New York City, so I wanted to move there. I was starting to look for jobs, but it's really hard to find a job in New York when you live in Texas because people don't know if you're actually going to move, so they don't really want to hire you, which is understandable. So I was trying to find my way in. I liked the site BuzzFeed, and I'd learned that you could, write articles for free. We used it for fun, and their, community page, so I was kind of doing that while I was applying for jobs on the side. And I just started having fun with them, and people seemed to like them. I got better. I was awful when I started, but I got better, and I kept doing that over and over until I wrote 200 in a very short amount of time, because no one was hiring me, so I had free time on my hands, and it caught the attention of the BuzzFeed community team, and they were like, yo, you should apply for this fellowship position that's going to start in February. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I applied for that. This was December 2014 at this point, and I got the job. And they knew I was in Texas, so that was fantastic that they still offered me the job. So I moved out to New York in February, on February 1st, and on February 10th, 2015, I started at BuzzFeed, and that really got my foot in the door and started my career. I it was a fellowship for 4 months through May, and then after that I was trying to find another job because fellowship just ended, and I got a job at Time for as an intern, Time Inc. I was there for a month because by that point I was able to get a weekend writer job at MTV News, where then I eventually became a normal, not just a weekend writer, just a Monday through Friday writer. I was there for for 2 years, and it was fantastic. I was there July 2015 through July 2017. August 2017, I started at 17 as their Snapchat editor, and I also write articles for their site, and that's where I am today.
Awesome. What does a Snapchat editor entail exactly? Is it just... That means just working on Snapchat, the app, in addition to writing articles, or?
Yes. When I started, 17 hadn't launched on Snapchat yet. They were gearing up to, so which is kind of cool that I was a part of that to launch it. We eventually launched in September of 2017. But yeah, so I'm in charge of organizing everything, all our editions, and making sure that I work with the design and animation team who are brilliant, and
nice.
Kind of bring articles that our writers have already written on the site to life. We have fun little polls and quizzes and shares and little games and stuff that we try to bring together. And when we started, we were only publishing one edition a week, so it would be up for the whole week. And then as we got more in a groove and got a little bit more team members, our team was expanding, we went to twice a week, which was a little bit stressful, but we got in the groove and were able to keep up the pace. And then we went to daily, which is 7 times a week. So obviously, we really had to bulk up because you had to have the weekend. We don't work on the weekends. And we've been doing that since May of 2018. I think we've been daily. And that's a huge part of my job is coming up with the ideas for kind of themes for the editions, and then reviewing everything, making sure there aren't any typos or the something's not wonky, and then so going through edits, and that's what I do. I also write articles for the site. We try to use them on the site and Snapchat. So sometimes, though, they just live in one place, but we try to have them grow legs. So that's what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Gotcha, that's really cool. So it's just being creative, and that seems like it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
It is. When I was at MTV News, I helped out with their Snapchat a little bit. This was when the Snapchat Discover was kind of just starting. I think MTV is one of the first brands that partnered with Snapchat. I wasn't officially on their team, but like they kind of poached me. And when I wasn't writing articles for the site, I was meeting with them for like little brainstorming sessions, and I would write little articles on the side that didn't really work for the site, but worked for Snapchat. So I kind of got a little bit of feel for it, which then kind of helped me prepare when I went to be like kind of manage the 17 one. I hadn't worked in the 17 like CMS before, so I had to learn that. And it's been really fun. It's been really cool. There's a big learning curve because it was all new for us, but we've been doing it for, it'll be 2 years in September. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I was curious to know favorite articles you've written.
Yeah, so probably one of my favorite article I've done would be when I interviewed Ross Lynch at MTV News. This was for My Friend Dahmer, which is based on the graphic novel of Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer, and his high school friend, closest thing to a friend he had, did this graphic novel about what like before he became a killer, which was fascinating. The book is fantastic, and the movie's just great. And it was really perfect for me because I'm known pretty much everywhere I've worked as like the Disney Nickelodeon chick, and which I'm totally fine with because I made a career off of it. But and Ross Lynch was like a Disney Channel star, so that was like a way in. And then he went dark, and it was. So, like, Zac Efron's doing the same thing with playing Ted Bundy, so, which I just think is fascinating, that they go from, like, one, like, kid thing to, like, dark.
Yeah.
So that's been a favorite one. When I met, the first person I ever interviewed in person, not just on the phone, was Nathan Kress from iCarly.
Awesome.
And I'd only been at MTV a few months then, there was just, he had like just gotten married, so like that was the whole, and he was there in the news for that, and he's a very nice guy, and it was cool to like get his insight, and kind of, so I really just kind of, that's opened the door for me to get to talk to a bunch of cool, like all these Nickelodeon stars, and work with them on different things. At 17, I got to interview Kel Mitchell, which was fantastic. Awesome. I was like, I love Keenan and Kel ever since I was like 6 years old. And he came into the office. He was promoting the Game Shakers Henry Danger crossover episode. So I talked to him about that. We talked about Good Burger, Keenan and Kel. I have Keenan and Kel shoes that I wore when he came in because I had to, so and then we took a photo. Really nice guy. So yes, and I wrote up an article about our interview. So those are those are a few.
That's very cool. So then, who are some people you're hoping to interview someday?
Oh, well, I'd love to interview Josh Peck. I have not actually met him in person. He just cracks me up with everything he does. I haven't officially interviewed Drake Bell. Like, I have talked to him before. He came to our office, but I wasn't doing the interview. He and I were just, like, talking about Drake and Josh. So I'd love to, like, officially interview him for that, since I just love Drake and Josh. Honestly, pretty much anyone who was ever on Nickelodeon or Disney Channel, like, and I guess, quote-unquote, the golden years, I'd love to talk to them about their work and, like, if they were in DComs and... but also I like to talk about what they're doing now. I don't like to, like, put people in a box. So a lot of the articles I had written was, like, I had to frame it that, they were on this show that you watched as a kid, but, like, this is what they're doing now. So, like, they're not just this one character and they don't do anything else for the rest of their life. Because a lot of them have come on to they've directed things, they're writing scripts, or they're not doing anything in the entertainment industry anymore, which is just fascinating to me. So I like learning about that. I'm also kind of just nosy, so I just want to know, like, why did this happen in this movie, or like, was this the original ending and stuff like that. So
right. I'm always interested in that stuff too, behind the scenes type stuff. Yeah,
totally.
Worked on the stuff.
Any movie that involves like an animal, I always will ask them, like, how was the animal, because animals are just unpredictable. I worked on an independent film in Texas before I moved to New York, called Promises, and one of the actresses on the film, I wasn't like an actress in the movie, I like did crew, but one of the actresses in the film was in the movie My Dog Skip, which traumatized me as a child, and she had to hear about it because they dragged out the dog's injury. But I was like, oh, so tell me about the dogs, and because there was two, there was like the main dog, and then like when Skip was older. And one of them was the dog who played Wishbone, which I loved. Wishbone. That's who I'd love to talk to, the Larry Brantley who voiced Wishbone. That'd be another person I'd love to interview. And so I was like, tell me about the dogs, and she's like, well, as a father and son, they could not be next to each other. They hated each other. We had to keep them separated. And so I was like, oh, this is the tea I didn't know I needed. And so ever since then, I've asked every actor, like, tell me about the animal, like, what happened, because there was always some story. And like, the one I can remember is, have you ever seen the DCOM Jumping Ship? With like
I haven't.
Okay,
no.
well,
who's in it?
It's underrated. It's the Lawrence brothers, Joey, Andy, and Matthew Lawrence. It's the sequel to Horse Sense. It's an older one.
Okay. It
turned 15 like 2 years ago, and so I was lucky enough to get all three of the Lawrence brothers on the phone at different times. And I think it was Joey, the oldest one. I was like, tell me about, there's like an emu or an ostrich or something in a scene, and I was like, tell me about that, and he's like, that thing didn't ever want to like do what it wanted to do. It was very sassy. So like stuff like that's like random that you didn't think you cared about until you read it, and then you're like, oh well, now I needed to know that. So.
Right. They say that it's notorious that kids and animals are the toughest to work with, like kid actors
most definitely,
and animals.
Yes.
I can imagine. All right, so I wanted to know, what are some of your favorite topics or just favorite shows to write about?
Well, Drake and Josh, as I mentioned, anything on classic Nickelodeon or Disney Channel, but I also do watch current shows way more than I do the nostalgic ones, contrary to popular belief. And I love Law & Order SVU. I haven't gotten to write about it in forever, but when I was at BuzzFeed, I did get to do this article that was... This was back at the time when this format was popular. It was like faces all blank people know, and so I did like faces all SVU fans know, and I'm still really proud of it because it just makes me laugh every time I look at it. And I think the last article I did for BuzzFeed when I worked there was like turning Ice-T quotes into motivational posters, which was pretty fun. And he saw it and liked it, so I was like. I've peaked.
Exciting.
So I love,
Nice.
I love the show Stranger Things. I wrote a little bit on it when I was at MTV. I would love to interview those kids, and I'm excited for the third season. God, I watch, you know how you watch so many shows, but when someone asks you that, you can't think of all the shows you watch.
They all,
it's overwhelming.
yeah. Right.
Yeah. So pretty much I watch a bunch of crime shows like SVU, I mentioned, Criminal Minds, even though it's ending, Elementary, which is also ending. So, yeah.
Cool. All right, but I wanted to get into now Nickelodeon in particular, and I want to know what were some of your favorite Nickelodeon shows growing up, whether the live action or animated shows.
For live action, as I mentioned, Drake and Josh, I loved Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. Zoe 101 was a personal favorite. Kenan and Kel, of course. Yeah. Those were the main... I mean, I watched a ton. I actually didn't really watch Victorious. Victorious came out when I was in college, and I was really busy with school, so I did not watch that live. But when I was at MTV, I was writing about it a lot, but I hadn't... Like, I only knew, like, very basic stuff, so I was like, I should probably watch some of the show so I know a little bit more. And then I loved it, so I was like, this show's fantastic. So I guess we'll count that one too because it was really great. For animated, I loved Hey Arnold, Rugrats, but Fairly Odd Parents is probably hands down my favorite. I just think that humor is just perfect, and I could watch it all day.
Nice. So as an adult now, what would you say, like, are there certain shows in particular that you have a newfound appreciation for compared to when you watched them as a kid?
Most definitely Hey Arnold, because when I was at BuzzFeed, I wrote some article that was like, Hey Arnold moments that were too real, and that show was really dark. And which you kind of goes over your head when you're like a kid, but when I was rewatching some episodes, some clips, I was like, goodness gracious, this was very intense. And I think it was just very smart too, because it wasn't like shoved down your throat or like beating a dead horse, but it did it's like real world problems. So I definitely appreciate that a lot.
I mean, yeah, even the fact that it was alluded to that Helga's mom was an alcoholic, basically. You know, just 100% goes over your head as a kid.
Oh, most definitely.
You know?
Yeah. And then there was it talked about homelessness with like Birdman or whatever, and then money problems with some of the tenants in Arnold's building, and relationship issues with I think it's Oscar, excuse me, and whoever's wife, Miriam,
No, Oscar and Susie.
Kokoschka?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, I'm a fake fan.
The boarding house, yeah.
So stuff like that you're like, goodness. And there was one scene with the ice cream man, the Jolly Ollie.
Oh,
and his dad hated him and he was never good enough for him. And I was like, that's heavy too, because I'm sure unfortunately, a bunch of kids can relate to that. So yeah.
Right. I know there's a lot of depth to that show with the characters. Just, great Nicktoon.
Yeah, it still holds up,
For sure.
I feel like most Nicktoons do, but that one I think really does.
I agree. Okay, so you've touched on this. You're a huge Drake and Josh fan. So first off, do you prefer Drake or Josh? The characters.
Well, probably, I love them both. I crushed on Drake growing up. But, I was more like Josh. I was nerdy and, kind of just did my own thing, and everyone's like, why is she weird? So I guess I'm going to go with Josh just because I could relate to him more. Drake always just had, girls hanging on him and stuff, and I was not that suave with the guys. So, Josh.
I know, I prefer Josh, too. He's just so funny and just that lovable kind of clumsy, nerdy kid, but I love Josh. But Drake's, they're brothers. You can't have one without the other. So.
Right. They're just the perfect duo. They're great, compare and contrast foils or whatever. So, yeah.
Right. I'll same with all those shows, even Keenan and Kel, too, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. But, so besides Drake and Josh, who are some of your other favorite characters on that show?
I loved the nerds, Craig and Eric.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I did interview both of them.
Cool.
Just because I wanted to.
What are the actors' names? I honestly don't even know.
Alec Medlock was Craig. And I talked to him on the phone. And then Scott Halberstas. It's a longer name. I think that's... Anyways, and I talked to him via email. He pops up in different commercials now.
Cool. Huh.
For, that are national commercials. I can't remember what the brand is, but every time I'm like, oh my god, it's Eric, the one who wore glasses. So yeah, they were some of my favorites just because they're just so goofy. Crazy Steve,
Oh my, yeah, of course.
You can't. It's just a fantastic character, and the actor Jerry Trainer wasn't even in a ton of episodes as Crazy Steve when I looked it up on IMDb not that long ago. But it feels like he was there from the get-go on the show, which is kind of cool. And also Walter. I love the dad.
Oh yeah,
hands down. That he's fantastic. Anytime I read about Drake and Josh and Walter's mentioned, I have to make some kind of Bruce Winchell joke. Just whether it's funny or not, it just makes me laugh. So.
I actually also like Helen because I love that she just loved Drake and then just kind of indifferent towards Josh, even though Josh worked for her, but she just loved Drake like he was the greatest kid.
Exactly. She had that
Poor
is not my
Josh.
job. She had the best.
Yes. I
actually for Christmas, just this past Christmas, there's they worked at the premiere and they had their uniform. It was the red shirt with the P on it. Well, Redbubble of course makes that, so I was like, I asked for that for Christmas and I got it, and I took a photo
awesome.
in it. And I posted on Facebook, and my mom commented. My parents have seen a lot of Drake and Josh over the years because I was watching it constantly, so they're pretty savvy about it. And my mom's like, Helen's proud, or you make Helen proud, or something. And so, of course, I go and tweet that to her, to Yvette Nicole Brown. I was like, do I make you proud? And she's like, you do. And I was like, hooray,
awesome.
Life is amazing. So, yeah, all those characters, just that's just Dan Schneider's humor. You know, I think it shows in all his shows that he's created. It's just, you know, it's just like a lot of it's just so random, but it's smart random.
Right.
That it just I don't really know how to describe it in a better way, but it's just they're just all winners. They're just like their quotes just stick with you.
And she wasn't a favorite of mine, but we do have to give props to Megan.
I mean, yeah.
That villain for Drake and Josh, so evil.
So yeah, my dad like always laughed at Megan's antics. He has a lot of siblings, so maybe he could relate.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and just that her evil smirk every time just kills me.
Oh my gosh. What about some of your favorite episodes of the show?
My favorite episode is the Demonator, the roller coaster one.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's more so because with the nerds, the side story, like Craig and Eric, and like they're with Papa Nichols, Drake and Josh's like great grandfather, who like he's on heavy medication, and like he thinks he's in World War II, and he's like, there's a line where they're like, we're not Germans, and he's like, that's just what a German would say, and my friend and I would just quote that all the time in like middle school, and it makes me I've watched it not that long ago, actually, the episode. So that's definitely one of my favorites. I love the storm where they're all like, they're supposed to perform and it's raining and then they all get stuck in the house. And then it's Crazy Steve, the Dora the Explorer,
right.
like, you know, you're on the map. So that's
you have to keep cranking the like lever of the TV so he could keep watching it.
Yes. And then probably the foam finger one. That's pretty iconic, where they fight over the foam finger because they learned they knew each other as kids, and yeah. Honestly, any episode, but those are the three that come to mind.
Cool. Okay, so then, in your opinion, what is it about this era of Nickelodeon, this 90s to 2000s era, that makes it so beloved by fans to this day, and just this kind of treasure trove for creating content for today's internet culture?
Well, for me, that was just such a happy, I mean, I'm happy in my life now, but that was also a happy time in my life watching those shows. So for me, it's just very, I guess I'm romanticizing the time, but I just am in a good mood when I'm watching them, because I remember how much I enjoyed and laughed at them when I watched them as a kid, and I still feel that way now. So I don't know if that's how other people are feeling, but that's my theory, is that, you know, it just reminds you of a good time. That, you know, there are things happening in our country that right now that aren't so great, so sometimes it's just nice to go and escape and remember how things used to be.
Right.
And so that's one thing. Also, you know, with the success, like shows like Fuller House and all these other reboots that they're doing, clearly people want it, as long as like the original cast comes back. Like, people don't want it if you're just gonna throw in random other people, or at least I don't want it. I shouldn't speak for everybody, but it seems to be the consensus.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So it's like, honestly, I'm kind of down for them to reboot whatever, as long as the entire or majority of the cast is like game and wants to do it. I think they've done some pretty smart reboots. The Legends of the Hidden Temple TV movie. I loved every minute of that. I thought it was just brilliant, because it's, to my knowledge, like the first thing that's been from a game show. And I got to interview host Kirk Fogg, and then D. Bradley Baker, who was the voice of Olmec. And he, like, that's not his actual voice. So when he did the voice, I was like, oh my gosh. But this was for MTV, and I asked him, I was like, you know what do you think makes this even possible? And he's like, and Kirk Fogg, I believe, is the one who said it, was like, you know, it's a game show, but it had a storyline to it, and most, like, Family Feud doesn't have a story. I love Family Feud, but it doesn't have a storyline to it. The Legends of the Hidden Temple did. So I think when they're doing reboots like that, and they're making them smart and turning it into, like, an actual story, instead of just doing a reboot just to make money, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there any, like, reboots you're excited about? Any upcoming show reboots or movie reboots?
The Kim Possible movie on Disney Channel, I'm excited. It looks cute.
The live action, that's clever.
Yeah, it looks cute, and I love the Goldbergs, and the kid playing Ron is is the star of the Goldbergs. Sean, I don't know how you say his last name, starts with a G. And then Chrissy Carlos Romano is involved with it somehow, which, you know, that's great. Since she's the OG Kim Possible.
They also said that Nancy Cartwright is voicing the naked mole rat.
Rufus,
I didn't realize
yeah.
she voiced him in the original. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
cool.
I would have loved to have watched her do that because, you know, the noises he makes are just ridiculous. So it'd be great to have watched her get to do that in person.
By the way, did you... Sorry.
Oh,
did you by
okay.
chance see, what's it called? Hey Arnold, the Jungle Movie? Because that was an excellent... It was so good.
I've had it recorded.
Movie.
I feel like I should have watched it. I haven't.
Yeah.
But here's my reasons, though.
Okay.
One is because I keep forgetting. But two is because once I watch it, then it's over. And then I have, like, no more... Because they're not, you know, unless they're going to randomly make more episodes, that's the end of Hey Arnold. And I'm not, like, ready for that yet. So I'm just going to, like, just keep... Somehow I have not been spoiled, like, with what happens and stuff, which is amazing.
Yeah, because it came out in November 2017,
yeah.
So good for you, yeah.
Yeah, my dad was that was around Thanksgiving, my dad was visiting, so...
Cool, okay.
That's why, like, and then I didn't watch it live because I was doing stuff with him, so it's his fault. And, yeah, so that's another thing. I'm not ready to let the show go again, but I need to watch it, I know. It's been enough time.
Yeah, because, I mean, it ended on that cliffhanger note with the journal. It ended with him saying he found a map, so...
Yeah.
To go find his parents, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that's another example, like, of them just being really smart about it. That was that was something that did not set well with fans and how that ended, because it didn't really end. And they just took that and, like, ran with it. And they also have, like, I'm excited for the Invader Zim movie. That
Me too, and also the Rocco's
Modern Life. Yes, Rocco's Modern Life, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I need to watch more of Rocco's. I watched it growing up, but a lot of it, I think it was a little too smart. Like,
exactly, that's another show that you definitely appreciate more as an adult, for sure.
Like, I think, because, like, a lot of the jokes are just going to go right over my head as a child. But, yeah, so I'm excited for those, all those reboots.
Mm-hmm. And actually, they're also rebooting Rugrats, which Rugrats is my favorite, my all-time favorite Nicktoon, but I just don't see the point of rebooting Rugrats, personally. I don't think that's one that should be rebooted, but I'm sure it'll be good, but, you know, the original show is great.
The woman who voiced Chucky, hasn't she passed away?
She did pass away, but then actually... She had retired in 2001 from voice acting, and then Nancy Cartwright actually took over as Chucky in the later seasons,
Okay, so that makes more sense.
So I guess they would get her again, I don't know.
Yeah.
If they're getting all the originals, and, you know, E.G. Daly as Tommy and Cheryl Chase as Angelica, I would assume, and Kath Soucie as Phil and Lil.
Yeah, I do like that.
And also she voiced Betty, actually their mom. I
do remember reading that. I think, was it Cree Summer who was Susie, I think?
Right, And then also Tara Strong as Dill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Timmy Turner, so it's like all in the Nicktoons family.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also love Jimmy Neutron. I feel like it's really underappreciated.
That's a show I feel like a lot of fans want to see that rebooted.
According to whoever runs the Nickelodeon Twitter, because they posted some tweet once that was like, I'll post about literally anything, you know, Nickelodeon, and then all the comments are reboot Jimmy Neutron. So it's like, give the people what they want. That was another fun interview I did when I was at MTV. Was I talked to John A. Davis, who's the creator of Jimmy Neutron. It was in honor of the movie, which actually came out before the TV show, which was it's kind of backwards how they do that. But it was for the 15th anniversary. Cool. So I got him on the phone and, like, learned the whole origin of Jimmy Neutron. It was fascinating. He's a very nice man. And that show was just great. Like, I've seen there's been, like, lots of, like, memes around it. I'll see pop up on Tumblr randomly. Yeah. So I think, I mean, if they reboot another show, that one's my vote. So.
We'll see. I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
Because now we got Rocco's, though, was supposed to... The Static Cling, the TV movie, it was supposed to come out in 2018, and now we're here in 2019, and still radio silence, more or less, on what's happening with that. But I guess eventually we'll see.
Yeah, I'm hoping, because I don't think there's any date listed for that.
Still no, I know. And then apparently it's spring 2019 for the Invader Zim Enter the Florpus TV movie. So
yeah, I'm not sure if that's gonna happen yet. I hope.
Right?
Yeah, so.
I think also they were saying that they may move it to the Rocco's and possibly the Zim special on streaming sites. It may go on Hulu instead of on Nickelodeon, because apparently they weren't too happy with the ratings for Hey Arnold's the Jungle movie, even though fans loved it and it got a huge reaction. Everyone was happy with it, but
That's interesting. It makes sense, though, because I got to speak at a elementary school career day in December, and I was afraid that, like, these kids wouldn't know. This was, like, 3rd, 4th, and 6th graders I talked to. I was afraid they're like, they're not going to know any of the shows I'm talking about. They knew every single cartoon, and one kid knew, like, whatever happened to Robot Jones, which was on for 2 seconds.
That's a throwback. Yeah.
And there's no way that kid was alive when that show came out, and I was just shocked that he remembered it.
That's funny.
And I think it's because so many of these shows are on, I think the Nicktoons especially are on Hulu. So I think that's how they know, because I doubt their parents are just, like, throwing Nickelodeon DVDs at their face and, like, educate, you know. So wouldn't blame Nickelodeon if they did that, because it seems like it's working.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now I wanted to get into your book, Hey Arnold's Guide to Relationships. So how did that opportunity come about for you, and what was the writing process like?
Which now it's funny that I haven't seen the Jungle movie, and I wrote this book, but that's neither here nor there. So that was kind of like just a crazy experience. It was in March of 2017. I got an email from someone at DK Publishing, and I was like, oh me, oh my. And and it was explaining about, you know, we're partnering with Nickelodeon to use, you know, the rights of their characters. We're gonna have a Hey Arnold book and a Rugrats book, and they we have seen some of your work. They said on BuzzFeed, and then also my website, which I don't know if they meant like I have a blog that's called nostalgiaisthenewblack.com, but I don't update it as much as I should, so I don't know if that's what they meant. But the BuzzFeed work, I'm assuming they meant like my Hey Arnold article I did there. That did really well.
So what's it called? The article?
The article was like, I think it's 23 moments Hey Arnold just got too real, or something along those lines.
Okay, so like the darker moments, as you had talked about earlier.
And I wrote that in 2015, so it was kind of cool that they saw it in 2018. But and so they were like, we think he'd be a good fit to write this. Would you be interested in it? And I was really hoping the whole thing was legit, because like that, it just honestly fell into my lap. I had done the work beforehand, which is how they saw me, but it kind of just felt like it fell in my lap. And so I was like, you know, yes, I would like to do this. And the turnaround, though, was really, they needed all this, they needed all the writing very soon, in like a short, like 2-week minimum period.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, goodness gracious. So, so I was cranking that out. It's not like a book, it's more like it's like a humor book. So they used actual imagery from the show and quotes, and like listed whatever the episode name is and when it premiered and stuff on one page, and then the other page has like a cute little like kind of relationship tip, and then like some like, it's geared towards like people like our age, you know, like millennials, even though millennials hate it when you call them millennials, but
oh gosh.
So it's got like funny hashtags and like very internet culture savvy stuff, and so they needed like all that right, and they weren't always sure which images they were going to use, so I wrote some that didn't make the cut because they only had so many, but they let me, they're like, do you want to do Hey Arnold or Rugrats? And I loved both, but I had the complete series of Hey Arnold on DVD, so I was like, oh, if I need to reference something, that's going to be easier. I didn't realize Rugrats was on Hulu or anything at this point. But yeah, so I did that, and then I had to sign like an NDA, like couldn't tell anybody about it, like what the project was, and then I forgot about it, to be honest. Because I did it in March, and then eventually they're like, oh, well, we think October's gonna be the date. And they're all very, very sweet people at DK, and so I was like, okay, great. And so like months went by and I forgot. And then I believe it came out October 2nd, 2018. Cool. Of it, like, and it's in stores and like on Amazon online. And then I was like, oh, so I guess I can talk about it now, because I saw it.
Right, it's out in the world.
Yeah. And so then, and they were hoping I would be able to like sign copies at New York Comic Con, which was like, yes, please. And that did end up happening, which was fantastic.
Awesome.
So I signed copies along with Rachel, who wrote the Rugrats Guide to Adulting, the other book. And she used to work for Nickelodeon magazine, which would have been my dream job if that like was still around.
I remember those commercials.
Yes, yeah. So it was cool. She she had
cool.
she had interviewed Craig Bartlett, who created Hey Arnold, like back in the day. So she was telling me about that. Really nice person. And so we were signing copies of our books together at the DK publishing table. And Saturday and Sunday, and I was afraid. I was like, what if no one comes? Like, this is gonna be awkward. But then like a lot of people did, and like I'm not like famous or anything, but it was cool that they wanted like my autograph for it. So yeah, that was just worth it in and of itself. So that's kind of how that came to be. And then that's why I went and spoke at the career day, because I was technically a published author. So like I knew the vice principal there, and she was like, would you speak to our kids about writing and stuff? So
that's really cool. And it was just your own love for Hey Arnold, just that article that they had found you online and they that's just really awesome that you got that opportunity. Yeah, like
if it didn't happen to me, I'd be like, that sounds fake, but that's exactly what happened. So
that's so cool. Yeah. Do you have any plans to write more books in the future?
I do. Yeah, I've been working on a children's book
nice.
that I would love to see published. I have a couple more ideas, but they're not like fleshed out or anything.
Gotcha.
But, yeah.
Are you like work with an illustrator for a children's book, or you just like do it yourself?
Oh, I cannot draw, so I would have to work with an illustrator.
Gotcha.
Yeah, my drawing skills are horrific, but yeah, this children's book, it would be a picture book. Like I love the pout pout fish. Have you ever heard of that? You know what that is?
I haven't. No. Tell.
It's fantastic. There's like a series now, but I've only read the original.
Okay.
And it's just a fish. It's a picture book. It's just a fish that's like always upset and pouting until like this other fish kisses him, and then he's happy, and it's just cute. It's really freaking cute. And it was like crazy successful. It's like a bestseller forever. And so I was like, oh, I would love to do that. So yeah,
that's really cool. And so you said yourself you're from Texas. You moved to New York for your career. So what advice do you have for people looking to move out of their parents' home or to a new state in pursuit of a new career opportunity?
It's going to be hard, and that's normal. I didn't know anybody in the business when I moved here, and I feel like that's important to share, because it's like, I mean, it helps if you know people, but all the jobs I've gotten so far have been like I didn't know anybody. I just had to get on my work, like BuzzFeed. It was because I did all this work, and you have to like pay your dues, because like a lot of I did, that was just stuff for free on their community site. MTV, which then helped me get probably in the door at MTV, having that on my resume, but I didn't know anybody there, so I had to just show like, look, I can do the work. I don't have anybody referring me. And then same for 17. I didn't know anybody at Hearst Media. It helps, but it is very 100% possible to be successful without having to like have all these network connections, the moment you decide to join whatever the industry is you're looking for. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Another good thing to keep in mind is like, nothing's guaranteed. Things happen. Sometimes, companies just have different visions, and that's okay. And like, you're going to find another job. You might you'll find things you didn't know you liked, trying different types of like, I told these kids at the career day, some of you guys may think you don't like to write, but there's tons of different types of writing. Yeah, you might not like writing essays. I'm not crazy about them either, but there's like screenwriting and, if you're like poetry or like fiction writing or comic book writing or, so there's like different sides, and like it's good if you don't see the job that you think you're 100% qualified for, look at some of the other like things that it's like the descriptions, and you're like, you know what, I could try that, I should try that and see if I like it. And you might learn a new skill, and you might find something you didn't really know. Like the thing with BuzzFeed, right. That I just wanted a job that would get me to New York, and that seemed like the ticket. And then I found out I really liked this like kind of entertainment humor writing, and now that's what I do. So
right. So it's basically being open to opportunities and just seeing where each one will lead for the next step in your career.
Yeah, awesome. Like unless you know, you're like, no, this area is like just not for me. But if you're, which is like usually a lot of times that's what college kind of teaches you, what you don't like to do.
True.
So which is totally fine, but, like, a lot of, like, jobs listed, you're like, well, maybe I should, consider this. I hadn't really thought about it. I don't know if I don't like it or something, so.
Cool, yeah. And so what do you hope to accomplish next in your career?
Well, I'd love to have that children's book published. I love interviewing talent about, there's like all these different movies and TV shows coming out, and I'd love to talk about them with people, and then also like movies are having their, anniversaries this year and next year, so I'd love to talk to people about that. I guess kind of more in the same of what I'm doing now, but I just really like doing it, so I'd like to continue doing it.
Nice. And so I have kind of a bonus question for you. What TV quote would you say is a good personal philosophy?
There's one, the one that comes to mind is, of course, from Drake and Josh. And Drake is like, when life hands you free nachos, you don't question it. And I think, like, I think it's a more fun way to say when life gives you lemons,
right.
So I always liked that one. And then also the one where Josh tells the delivery worker to have a nice day, and he's like, don't tell me what to do.
I love that.
That speaks to me as well. So.
That's excellent. This has been, oh my goodness, this has been great. Thanks so much for joining me today, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
So tell everyone where they can find you on social media and where they can purchase your book.
So my handles are, it's Stacey, Stacey _Grant 91 on Instagram and Twitter. I believe it's PencilTop24 on Snapchat. And you can find my book on Amazon. It's in Barnes & Noble. I've heard from friends that it's in Target. Didn't know it was even in Target, so that's kind of cool.
Cool.
But definitely Amazon's going to be the easiest route.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so with that, that's going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Storytelling Saga, as well as on Twitter at Storytell Saga. You can also send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by leaving me a message at the contact section of storytellingsaga.com or by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, when I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things on my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. I'll be discussing The Outsiders. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.